Hello folks, I hope that you're having just a great and safe day today in our modern COVID world, and that you're staying especially as safe as you can be, and trying to keep yourself enjoyable too. Today I want to take a look, do something a little special for you today. We're going to take a look at something a little different. I just hit my 500 subs a couple of days ago, so I'm doing this as a special video. I've planned it for about 50 subs now for about 3 or 4 weeks. As I was getting closer and closer to 500, I thought this would be pretty cool. But what I want to do today is I want to take a look at why I believe that we as adults should still be reading young adult fiction. Whether that young adult fiction is something that's popular, like Harry Potter series, and it has had a popular movie series, or something like Hunger Games, and so forth, or whether it's something more like The Mortal Instruments with City of Bones and the series from Cassandra Clare, and so forth. Whatever it is we're talking about in particular, I do think that there is value in us as adults in reading young adult fiction that's popular during that time. So today what I want to do is make the case for that, why that it's something that should be on our radars, something that we are reading and being involved with. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today. And make the case for that. So let's go ahead and get started. We read a lot of things as people. We have a lot of things that are in our queues. We've got books, short stories, comics. We also invest ourselves in other media like movies, video games, TV shows, right, and so forth. But there's a lot of medium that you read and digest that way too. And there's even some reading medium in some of the other mediums too. Like, for example, there are video games that you would read that are called visual novels. So the reading is so important and so impactful that it will encroach on other genres. It's not just in a book form. You have movies with subtitles that you have to read that are in other languages and so forth. Reading is a key part of a lot of things that we do. And one of the key things that we do as people, as particularly in an English Western culture, is that we have a sort of canon that we use, things that most of us have read or are familiar enough to talk about. And this sort of canon involves everybody from Shakespeare to Hamlet and his Hamlet, and Romeo and Juliet and so forth, to some of the epics that are out there, and so forth. From the Greek epics, from Homer, to some of the Norse epics that we read too, like Beowulf, and so forth. Famous poems like When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be, or Rama the Ancient Mariner, or Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. These sorts of famous poems that we all read and are all familiar with, and thus have a sort of common denominator. Now the key question is, why are we doing these things? Why are we all reading all these things that are in common together? Why is this a part of like every single reading class, English class, as you're growing up in all the schools? You also have classes. You're all reading the same novels. You're all reading the same plays by Shakespeare, reading the same poems. Why is it that we're all reading the same canon? Why is that something that we do in Western culture? And while the canons will change based on your culture, like the Song of the Cid will be read in Spain, the Song of Roland will be read in France, the Nibelungenlied will be read in other places. The Kalevala, which I probably mispronounced, Kalevala, is read in Finland, and so forth. So there are some different things in the cultures, but yet still, they still have the same thing. It's not just an American thing, or people that were inspired by the British. It's not just an English culture thing too. Other cultures do this a lot too. China does this with their great novels, like and so forth. So it's not just us. This is something that we do as people worldwide, right? So given that, why are we so invested in this? And the reason is that so that we all are on the same place, all talking from the same place, experiencing the same thing. When I refer to Shakespeare's Hamlet, if I quote it, if I quote Romeo and Juliet, if I quote the Great Bard, if I quote other works that you've read, that you're familiar with, you know what I'm referring to, you know what I'm using. If I say that this story is a Romeo and Juliet story, you'll know what I mean. I don't have to explain it. I'll have to spend 5 minutes telling you how the story is a Romeo and Juliet story and what that actually means, what that analogy actually means, because you haven't read Romeo and Juliet, so why am I referring to it? It's shorthand. It gives us all a common denominator from which to discuss things. Well, there are common denominators in various genres too, like The Lord of the Rings, in fantasy, or Dune in science fiction, as well as movies that are canon, and so people should have seen a certain set of movies, and so forth, right? They're these shared experiences that we have. The thing is about common popular culture stuff too. That is the term of the moment, junior fiction, and stuff like that. YA fiction, that is also of the moment too. If your kids are reading it, why aren't you reading it too? It gives you this, you expect them to read the things that that you have a conversation with, like the Shakespeare's and the famous movies, the John Steinbeck novels, East of Eden, right, and so forth. We all are expected to read those. So why wouldn't you also, as an adult, read the same things that your kids are reading? Read the same things that college students are reading, right? The things that are popular right now. These things are a common cultural denominator too. So we should share in that as adults. For example, and probably the best example is the Harry Potter series. The Harry Potter series is so popular and so impactful, right, that there are entire YouTube channels that are dedicated to Harry Potter, that talk about the various things, talk about the impact that it had on them as growing up, right? It is a part of the shared culture that we are currently living in. So us as adults, we should read Harry Potter too, right? Even if you're not coming to it from a youth. And the same thing is true with the Hunger Games and that series too. This is another part of our common shared denomination culture right now. It's a big part of modern culture, so why wouldn't we read it, right? And the same thing's true with City of Bones and the Mortal Instruments series, right? And there are other series too that I'm not going to spend some time with. But there's value in reading what your children are reading. If your children are reading it, if they're engrossed in it, read it too. Read it to them. Read it with them. Read a chapter a day. Read a chapter a week. Whatever you guys' speed is, together. And talk about it together. Discuss it together. Enjoy it together, right? This is the shared common denominator of the people that are living today. And that common culture is just as valuable as the collected canon that we all want people to have read too. So it's only fair that if we expect, our young adults, our teenagers and so forth, to read these things, then we should be reading what they're reading too. After all, if it enhances their conversation with us to know, Romeo and Juliet, it also enhances our conversation with them to be able to talk about, Harry Potter and be conversant in that. So I do want to challenge adults that are out there watching to read young adult fiction. It's really an important part of who we are, our culture, our society, and it's impactful. So we should read it too. And then that's it. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Did you like this special video? I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, thank you for subbing with this and getting to 500 subs. I really do appreciate that. So much taking some time out of your day and so forth. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please feel encouraged to do so. Typically, I do a lot of reviews of science fiction, fantasy, and horror for you all. And occasionally, I'll do something that's a little bit different, just a little bit outside the bounds, but it's within the bounds of those three sort of genres. So there you are. Thanks again, and have a great day.